Hi YouTubers, Dr. Sang here. I updated my first video 2 days ago and talking about why I will not be surprised if remdesivir fails its clinical trial. And in the past 48 hours, that video has been clicked more than 100 times, which I think it is pretty good for my first video. And I would like to thank everyone who watched and supported me. And most importantly, I get many valuable comments. Like somebody commented that my hairstyle is terrible, and I know I have been losing a lot of hair recently. And somebody commented that I appeared to be very rigid during the video. Well, I think the COVID-19 is not a very happy topic, so that's why. So I have to be serious. And somebody said that, well, you need to show some evidence supporting your theory. Okay, I think I will accept these advices and find ways to improve and make my videos more attractive. And so in my last video, I emphasized the importance of targeting immune system of the host rather than the pathogen itself during the COVID-19 infection. However, I need to clarify that I am not saying that in all cases, targeting pathogen is not effective. That not only will make my microbiologists and virologist colleagues not happy, but it is also not true. In history, there are numerous cases where targeting the pathogen itself can be effective. For example, the penicillin treatment of bacterial pneumonia, and also the anti-HIV drugs treating the AIDS patients. So these treatments are proved to be effective. I think it really depends on the inflammation status. Some infections are mild, so even they trigger some immune response, but these immune responses are not lethal. But in some other cases, like in this COVID-19 case, so the inflammation is too much, and this too much inflammation is lethal to the host. So that's why, so in this case, targeting the inflammation has a priority over targeting the pathogen, the virus itself. If you can remember, 17 years ago, so when we have the SARS outbreak, the steroid drug, so which is an immunosuppressive drug, it did save a lot of people's lives. Although this drug has significant side effects, but it did work. So for remdesivir, although it may not work for patients in critical and serious conditions, but I still hold hope that it may help to prevent the disease progression at the early stage. So now I will discuss the top 5 approaches that in my opinion will benefit the COVID-19 treatment from the immunology side. So before I start, please note, this is not medical advice. So if you are not feeling comfortable, call your doctor and make an appointment. I'm a researcher, I'm not a medical doctor. My wife is, I am not. And also, I believe many of these points that I presented here are being studied by my immunology colleagues. Don't think I'm the first to propose these points. I am not that genius. So the number 1 point, target the cytokine storm. The cytokine storm usually accompanies severe infections. It can be triggered by bacterial infection, and it can also be triggered by virus infection. So it is a situation that your immune response gets really crazy and don't know what to do. So your immune system just use all its energy to produce a huge amount of inflammatory cytokines. So these cytokines will include, for example, interferons, interleukins, and tumor necrosis factors, and etc. However, the overproduction of these cytokines is not protective in this case. Just like if you give your puppy a lot of commands, and your puppy will not know what on earth you would like her to do. So eventually your immune system will get exhausted. So not only your immune system get exhausted, but the cytokine storm is also harmful for other organs and lead to multiple organ failures. Cytokine storm is the biggest bad guy, in my opinion, that causes mortality. There is also a Lancet paper emphasizing the importance of inhibiting cytokine storm. But the difficult thing is that, so when you are talking about cytokine storm, you are not talking about only one cytokine. So you are talking about probably a dozen or dozens of cytokines. So this makes the situation very complex. And what is the most critical cytokine that is contributing to the mortality still needs more investigation. The number 2 point, targeting the immune cells. So just now we mentioned that so you have maybe dozens of cytokines that contributed to the cytokine storm, but comparing to those cytokines, you have less immune cell types that you can target. As we know, most cytokines come from the immune cells. These immune cells like the monocyte-derived macrophages or T cells, those are very good producers of pro-inflammatory cytokines. But what kind of roles these cells are playing during the COVID-19 case is not completely understood. So I am not going to make predictions, but I think these cell types are highly suspicious. Point 3, boosting the immune regulatory mechanism. Many immune cells have regulatory functions by either producing anti-inflammatory cytokines or through direct downregulation of activated immune cells, but this involves very complex pathways and also related with a lot of professional terms, and I'm not going into any details here. Anyway, boosting the regulatory cells could be beneficial in this case. Point 4, scavenging damage-associated molecular patterns, or DAMPs. Infections will induce tissue damage and immune response that produce a lot of inflammatory molecules. The production of these molecules is basically telling the body, hi, we have a problem here, so please help deal with it. But too much of these DAMPs will cause lethal effects. One example, oxidized phospholipid can be released during viral infection, like during influenza infection. See the title of this Cell paper. So the oxidized phospholipids are generated through oxidizing the phospholipid content in the cell membrane by reactive oxygen species. So in their paper, they have a mouse which is not able to produce reactive oxygen species, and that mouse is resistant to influenza infection. This concept, I believe many people have heard about it. That's why people run to the grocery store and buy vitamin C and orange juice. Vitamin C is a well-known antioxidant which in theory can lower reactive oxygen species. But please note, this is only by reasoning. Although it seems logical, but I don't think there is clinical research evidence supporting this theory. So I'm not going to make any recommendations here. If you want to take vitamin C, that is your own choice. To confirm this concept, I'm showing you another science paper. So the authors also come from the University of Maryland, but they are from our medical school. So we used to invite the first author, Dr. Carrie Ann, to our department to present her research on this study. They found a toll-like receptor 4 antagonist called erythrin can protect the mouse from lethal influenza infection. Look at their histology pictures from their paper. I think it is very dramatic. Even without professional expertise, I believe that you can easily see that on the left is the normal mouse lung. There isn't too much inflammation. And in the middle is the influenza-infected mouse lung. On the right is the erythrin-treated mouse after influenza infection. You can see the result is very dramatic. The erythrin treatment almost reduced the inflammation to normal status. So the authors concluded, and I quote, based on our data, that erythrin blocks oxidized phospholipid-induced TLR4 signaling, thereby mitigating the cytokine storm and the subsequent potentiation of phospholipid oxidation induced by reactive oxygen species. After the coronavirus outbreak, I wrote letters to the first author, Carrie Ann, and the senior author, Dr. Stephanie Vogel, and they told me they are working to test the effect of this drug during coronavirus infection. But please note, this drug has not been FDA approved. Point 5. Antibiotics. I know you are dealing with a virus infection, but yes, to inhibit bacteria, I believe is also very important. As I mentioned in my last video, the damaged barrier function can boost the growth of your commensal bacteria, and this bacteria has a chance to cause secondary infections. The sad thing is that we do not know what kind of bacteria is causing the infection. We can only use broad spectrum antibiotics, but the use of broad spectrum antibiotics is somewhat aimless. The antibiotic may not work for all bacteria. This area still needs further study. Hopefully my immunology colleagues will help with this issue. Actually, there is one last thing that is not listed here. That is related to one of my own projects. But I am not supposed to disclose any information from my project. Otherwise, my PI will get very mad at me. But I hope I can get this work published as soon as possible. So in the end, I listed 5 potential coronavirus treatment approaches from immunology aspect. So I did not include antibodies here, but in the future, I would like to make a video specifically talk about antibodies during coronavirus. You can subscribe to my channel if you want to get my updates. If you found this video informative, please hit the like button and give me some support. Thank you for watching this video. Please leave your comments below. And again, I have to repeat, the information in this video does not provide medical advice.